Shadow's last fetch. On the edge of a small town, in a small house nestled between a dense forest and a wide open field, lived a boy named Davy and his loyal dog called Shadow. The dog was Davy's constant companion, a warm presence with a thick, shiny coat and a wagging tail that could knock over a lamp. Every day they wandered into the woods, or they'd tumble around the field, laughing, barking, and losing track of time. The field was their favorite playground, full of hidden dips and gentle slopes that made every game feel like an adventure. Davy would throw sticks, toys, or best of all, Shadow's beloved red ball. Shadow adored that ball. He'd pounce on it, nose it, and bring it back every time, his eyes bright with excitement. With Shadow by his side, every step felt like part of an unbreakable adventure, one Davy thought would last forever. Seasons came and went, and eventually Davy grew taller, his voice deepened, and his life grew busier. By the time he was a teenager, homework, friends, and other distractions pulled him further away from his adventures in the field. Shadow aged too, his face peppered with grey, his pace slower. They still went out sometimes, walking side by side through the woods, Shadow's head low and Davy's mind often elsewhere. Davy felt guilty sometimes, knowing that he didn't play with Shadow as much as he used to. But Shadow seemed content, happy just to be near him. Then, one cold autumn morning, Davy found that Shadow had quietly passed away in his sleep. The house suddenly felt painfully empty. Davy dug a grave near the edge of the field where they used to play, and gently laid Shadow to rest there. His heart felt like it might break as he whispered goodbye, tears tracing silent paths down his cheeks. I wish I could have played with you one last time," he murmured, feeling the weight of every game they hadn't played, every walk they hadn't taken. Back home, he found Shadow's bed and red ball lying in the corner of his room. The sight of it made his heart ache, so he picked them up, placed them in the back of his closet, and shut the door. With time, the pain dulled a little, but the memories of their days together never faded. A year went by, and the anniversary of Shadow's death slipped past, unremarked and quiet. But that night, a strange sound pulled Davy from his sleep, a faint whining that seemed to drift through the dark. He rubbed his eyes, sitting up, uncertain if he was dreaming. Then came another sound, a faint, familiar scratching at his bedroom door. Davy's heart pounded as he stared at the door, caught between fear and curiosity. The scratching continued, gentle yet persistent, and he couldn't ignore it. Slowly, he slid out of bed, shivering as he approached the door. He turned the handle and pulled it open. There, in the shadowy hallway, sat Shadow. But he wasn't the same happy dog Davy remembered. Shadow's coat was patchy and rotting, his eyes covered with a dull, milky film, and his once wagging tail hung limp. The smell of damp earth and decay filled the air. Davy staggered back, instinctively recoiling in fear. But then, as if recognizing him, Shadow let out a small, hopeful whine and wagged his tail just once. As Davy took a shaky breath, trying to steady himself, Shadow hobbled over to the closet, pressing his nose against the door and scratching softly. Davy's hands trembled as he pulled the door open, and Shadow's old red ball rolled out, still as bright and intact as the last time he'd seen it. Shadow gently gripped the ball in his teeth, then turned and padded toward the hallway, pausing to look back at Davy, waiting for him to follow. Though a twinge of fear lingered, Davy found himself following Shadow down the hallway and out the front door, stepping into the cool night air. Shadow led him across the yard and to the field, which stretched out before them under the soft glow of the moon. Davy watched as Shadow dropped the red ball at his feet, backing up eagerly, his tail wagging just like old times. Davy hesitated, his mind spinning, but his heart took over. He picked up the ball and threw it. Shadow bolted after it, his legs pumping and his eyes locked on the ball like he was young again. They spent the rest of the night in the field, playing fetch, laughing, and chasing each other under the starry sky, just like they used to. With each toss, Shadow seemed to grow younger, his coat filling out, his eyes brightening, until he looked just like the young, vibrant dog Davy remembered. The night slipped by too quickly, and as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Shadow slowed down, returning to Davy's side. He nudged Davy's hand one last time, and Davy dropped to his knees, hugging him tightly, tears streaming down his face. As the sun rose, Shadow began to fade, his solid form blurring until he was nothing more than mist in Davy's arms. And then he was gone. Davy stayed there for a long moment, holding the red ball, his heart aching, but also full. His friend had returned to give him the gift he'd wished for. One final game, one last memory, one last playtime with Shadow.